Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the organising committee for making this slot available for a very new member of the consortium to say something about what we're doing. We're a very new member, and I think we're a very different member, as I'll go on to explain. I haven't got many slides, but I do have a lot to say, and there's probably more I could say than I have time available. But there are colleagues of mine here in the audience I'll point out that you can talk to, and we can give a demonstration of the types of things we expect to do. Now, the Open University is a different type of university in that we do things by open and distance learning. The mission of the UK Open University, as set out there, it is open to people, places, methods and ideas, promotes educational opportunity and social justice by providing high-quality university education to all who wish to realise their ambitions and fulfil their potential. And through academic research, pedagogic innovation and collaborative partnership, it seeks to be a world leader in the design, content and delivery of supported open and distance learning. Now, because we are an open university, we're not a campus-based university, I'll go on to give you some details about what the Open University does, the size and scale and how we operate, because it is significantly different to most other universities, except the many tens of other open universities around the world which we share those methods. The UK Open University was founded in 1969. Currently, we have about 200,000 students. 25,000 of those students live outside the United Kingdom. All of those students study part-time. They study either at home or at work. We're open to people, and by that we mean we are open access. That means that you do not need any previous qualifications to actually register for a course at the Open University. No previous educational qualifications. We take students from 18 to into their 90s. The average age is 33. I say we take students from 18, we also do have high school students, those 16, 17, who can study some of our entry-level courses as a prelude to going on to university, as to particularly those very highly gifted and talented children, to stretch them at high school before entering university. Now, a particular feature of us is we use open and distance learning. That means all our teaching, the majority of our teaching, is done through the production, authoring of educational materials. From the outset, the majority of that material is in print form, printed text, especially written texts. Some of those texts are done as co-publications with commercial publishers. Some of them are produced solely by the Open University. We produce audio-visual materials. We also produce television programs in collaboration with the BBC, Public Broadcasting Service in the UK. And we produce interactive media, computer-based instruction in various forms. Now, to do that for the 350 odd courses, the 1,100 faculty that are responsible for the authoring of those courses are supported by a large number of other staff. There are about 200 staff who are solely there as professional media developers to help us in the production and development of those educational materials. Whether that, as I say, be in the form of printed text, audiovisual materials, interactive media on CD, DVD, or from a website. I just wanted to give you that thumbnail sketch of the OU because it just shows that we are different in that we are already geared up for the production of e-learning materials. This is not quite the same as Opencourseware in terms of it being akin to the materials for class-based instruction. These are educational materials designed for study by students alone, in the home or at work, although we do encourage group activity and collaborative activity as well. And particularly we can do that now through the use of computer conferencing and the internet. And our turnover is something of the order of $750 million. As I said, we have 350 courses, and these are quite sizable courses, and I say when we say courses, they are of the order of 300 to 600 hours study time. Very large courses on the whole. Because those courses in their educational materials might only last for about 6 to 8 years, we're actually redeveloping about 1/6 of those materials, those courses, every year. So it's a substantial operation. Open educational resources, open content, Opencourseware. The Open University mission fits this ideally, as set out here. And I can give this quote from our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Brenda Gurley. The philosophy of open access and sharing knowledge is a wonderful fit with the founding principles of the Open University, and with the university's very strong commitment to open educational access and widening participation. The university will be developing forms of open content e-learning which will reach less experienced learners and, we hope, encourage an appetite for further learning. Those aspects of widening participation I'll come back to later. As I said, I'll just remind you that some of our students don't have low previous educational qualifications. About 1/3 of our student intake each year does not have the educational qualifications that would get them into any other campus-based university in the UK. In one sense, because of the model at which we work, ever since 1969, for those 36 odd years, we've been producing open content of a form. The materials we produce for students, many of them are freely published. They are available. Okay, you might have to buy them in a bookshop, but they are freely available in public libraries for people to look at free. Many of the audiovisual material produced with the BBC was broadcast free to air. The difference, though, was, or is a lot of that material is certainly free to consume by people, but it's not free for them to copy and to reuse. And that is where we're beginning to change the nature of what we do. Very recently, in the past 5 to 10 years, we've had a different relationship with the BBC, where we've had a joint website called open2.net, where we have materials which relate to the broadcast programs which we produce with them, link very closely to them, and again, provides a form of open content, but, as I said before, it's open to consume, but not open to copy. We are recently moving into a phase with the BBC through a consortium called Creative Archive to start putting some of this audiovisual material out free for use. At the moment it's restricted to the UK, but we're hoping we can push the BBC to go further to make that material and a greater quantity of that material available worldwide. So it's background. There are quite a number of different open content projects within the university at the moment, but I'll talk about what is the largest one. This is one which is generously funded by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, and is one that's just about to start and I'll come on to. But the goals of this most significant project is to make some of the Open University's distance learning materials freely accessible in an international web-based open content environment, and in so doing, to advance open content delivery method technologies by deploying leading-edge learning management tools for learner support, encouraging the creation of non-formal collaborative learning communities, and enhancing international research-based knowledge about modern pedagogies for higher education. This initiative is currently going through 3 stages. The first stage has just finished. The first stage of 6 months, planning and preparation, began last September and ended this March. Stage 2, which is covering 2 years from this April to April 2008, is this implementation, research and evaluation. And stage 3 is what we hope to be sustained development thereafter, but which we are going to work out how we're going to do that as part of stage 2. The stage 2 goals are some of the details. I'm not going to go into a lot of the technical details of what we want to do. If anybody's interested in some of the technicalities and see some examples of how it is we might do things and the type of educational material might be available, then my colleague Stephen Bradley, I don't know if Stephen are you in the room? Oh, there you are, Stephen. He's the Technical and Production Director for the Open Content Initiative, and he's giving demonstrations in the hall above. But just some goals, some of the things we're going to do. We're going to be utilising Moodle as the virtual learning environment platform. In fact, the Open University is using Moodle as its virtual learning environment platform for its taught courses for registered students. By adopting Moodle, we're also adopting some of the open source philosophy which we're trying to build into everything we're doing. And in adopting Moodle, we've become the largest single user of Moodle to those potential 200,000 students in one go. And we certainly want to work with the Moodle groups to actually move Moodle forward and to integrate some tools which I'll mention a bit later on. What we propose to do is to develop 2 complementary sites. One which we term the repository or a showcase site, which is a supported open learning site for learners. And then a depository, a place-based site, a supported open sense-making site for creators. Now the distinction here is that in the showcase site, we were going to have samples of the courses which we provide for registered students. This is e-learning materials, and we could call them courses. They're going to be of the size of 3 to 15 hours of study time. So when I said that the majority of our courses for registered students are 300 to 600 hours, you can see that they are just samples of them, but there'll be complete samples of e-learning materials derived largely from our existing courses, available for people to study as is, using the Moodle platform, using some of the conferencing and other peer-to-peer facilities within Moodle to engage in conversations with other learners which might be utilising that site. Now, all that material which we'll have in that showcase site will also be available in the place-based site. And that's where people will be able to use it, to remix it, to take it under a Creative Commons license, under the non-commercial attribution share-alike license. In terms of content, as it says there on the slide, we intend to create 900 learning hours within the repository for initial launch in October of this year, rising to 5,400 hours at the end of 2 years. If we call these samples courses, but because they're going to be of variable length, that's going to be something of the order of 550 courses at the end of the 2 years. But we're also going to make a further 2,700 hours of material available within the depository. And this tends to be material from discontinued courses, from archived courses which we produced in the past, which we no longer present as part of our accredited program, but which we still think there is value in it, and we wish to put that archived material out there for others to use. Lastly, we also want to add a range of open source learning tools to the depository devised by our Knowledge Media Institute. David mentioned BuddySpace. This is a sort of social presence, peer-to-peer system which enables you to find people with similar interests to yourself and then be able to engage in the conversations and to collaborate. There's another tool called Flash Meeting, which enables you to have a synchronous virtual meeting, but where you can see the other participants and where the whole conversation is recorded, and you can share documents, files, URLs, and work collaboratively online. And then an open sense-making tool called Compendium, which is a visual mapping tool, which also enables you to take, not only sort of chart out visually and diagrammatically the relationship between different objects, but able you to take different objects and resources, could be a video clip, could be a URL out to another site, to arrange those resources in a coherent and logical way and to be able to discuss that and share that with others at the same time. And all these tools we wish to deploy there, to understand them, for people to work on them, to refine them, and also to integrate them into the Moodle platform environment. In terms of the content and curriculum, then we're going to be putting that curriculum, that 5,400 hours, is going to be drawn from across the whole range of the university's curriculum, from all 8 of the university's faculties: the Faculty of Arts, Social Sciences, Education and Language Studies, Health and Social Care, Science, Mathematics and Computing, Technology, and our Business School. The planned outcomes of this Stage 2: an enhanced learning experiences for users of open content delivery, greater involvement in higher education by underrepresented groups, and empowerment for various support networks that work with them, enhanced knowledge and understanding of open content delivery, how it can be effective, and the contribution it can make to further development of e-learning, and an enhanced understanding of sustainable and scalable models of open content delivery. That second bullet point there comes back to that issue of widening participation. Part of the Open University's mission, as made clear, is that we need to reach out to those groups of students who do not otherwise have easy access to higher education, whether that be in developed countries or in developing countries. We work with many partners within the UK to bring potential students into the Open University, or even through some of our courses to go on to other universities, by providing support networks, providing specialist funding for those who are on very low incomes, do not have the time and resources to study without such financial support, or other types of support, childcare support, which these local providers are able to do to help the individual learners, and to get into some very hard-to-reach groups, certainly within the UK, within some of the immigrant communities, the ethnic minority groups where English is not their first language, and so studying is also a difficulty. So a big part of our project is, with the materials out there, is again to be working with these partners to try and use the materials which are there, either as is, or as versioned, or redeveloped by these partners, to reach out yet further to other people within different communities. In the same way, we're hoping to work with colleagues which we already work with and others we don't in developing countries, particularly in Africa, to be able to take these materials and to be able to version them, not just translate them, but to version them, to make them culturally specific to those local communities, to that nation, to that country, and provide resources which would not be available to them in any other way. And enhancing knowledge and understanding is important. 12% of our $10 million budget for these 2 years is on research and evaluation. By that I don't mean evaluation just of number of users, number of times pages hit or whatever's doing that. This is educational research into how are the users using it, how are the individual learners using it, how are the partner organisations working with it, how are other institutions, how are the course creators and educators using the materials out there, how are they using the tools, what do they value, what is important. Because we see this as part of improving pedagogy, improving our own e-learning, about ways of collaborating and working in this new internet age. Lastly, the major challenges, which not many of which are different to those which have already been said many times today already. But certainly the first fits very much with our mission of widening participation, that we want to empower people to make use of an information-rich world through appropriate learning technologies and support networks. It is that support networks of community building that is going to be one of the key aspects of it. We're not short of content. You know, the degree of content we're putting out, that 5,400 hours, is less than 5% of our current educational material catalogue existing. We're not going to be rushing out, putting it all out there. It's a big job to put it all out there. But we want to use that and find out the best ways of using material which is available to all to improve their learning and to provide access to higher education. We want to open up the opportunities for non-formal learning as part of a lifelong learning agenda, understand better how to reach those hard-to-reach groups, and tackle educational disadvantage. It is a very costly enterprise. It's all very well for those who have had the privileges of good education, good economic situation, to be able to go to university. Those who haven't, through many of the presentations today. In some ways, the issues for the Open University as an open and distance learning institution are different from many of the rest of you. We already have many procedures for managing quality assurance. We already, and from our inception, have cleared intellectual property rights, copyright on material which we've incorporated in the materials we provide to registered students. In fact, currently we spend anything up to £1 million, maybe £1 million, $2 million on rights for our course development. We have several staff whose sole role is clearing rights. But we have an issue with open content, but we've still got to go through that, because although clearing the rights, digital rights, even worldwide rights for materials, but which are to registered students, is different from having it out there, available to all and for reuse. But as with the BBC, we are beginning discussions, certainly in the UK, with publishers, other providers of content, to see whether they will open up and change their stance on intellectual property rights, to see that providing material free is probably going to be a greater benefit to them in the long run than they think they might be able to gain from some small value in the short run. But certainly in terms of creating a sustainable system, two of the big things that we're looking at, which have already been mentioned, is firstly, we already are a scale producer of educational materials. We're having to do some work at the moment to repurpose what we have to put it out there on the web for open educational resource delivery. But we're already reworking our whole production systems, trying to bring in new ways of working such that all the material which the university will produce from now on could easily be just taken one way for open content use, the other way for the registered student use. Just a push of a button, and it goes one way or the other. So it's all built in from the outset. But it's also the case that for us, just as the website I mentioned, open2.net, is actually quite a bit of a shop window for bringing students into the Open University and studying with the Open University, we hope this site will be as well. We spend $40 million a year on marketing to get students in, to register for our courses. We can easily use a bit of that to support sites like this, which do provide a shop window, not just to us, but again, we provide a shop window not just to ourselves, but to higher education within the UK. We have many people who study on some of our entry-level courses, particularly a suite of courses called Openings, which are a sort of return-to-study style courses. And people sometimes take those with us, but then they go to register with a campus-based institution. But part of our mission and part of the funding we get is to enable that to happen. Thank you very much.